Princess Bano, lost in the pride of her beauty, was the only child of the Sultan. Whenever she rode through the city, people would lock themselves inside their homes. Merchants would pull down the curtains of their shops. Travelers would step aside, disappearing into side streets. Anyone who failed to move in time faced a cruel fate. By royal decree, they were to fall face down on the ground, unmoving. Those who dared to defy this law were punished in the most terrifying way. Molten iron rods were plunged into their eyes. One day, Princess Bano's grand procession, surrounded by palace guards, moved through the marketplace. Just then, from another street, an old traveler unknowingly stepped into the market. The moment he saw the approaching royal procession, his heart pounded. He had no time to run, nowhere to hide. He was a poor old fisherman carrying a basket filled with fresh fish on his head. If he threw the basket down and lay flat on the ground, his precious fish would be ruined. But if he remained standing, the punishment was worse than death. The palace guards reached him within moments. They grabbed the old man and dragged him away. Princess Bano's eyes burned with fury as she glared at the old man. Without a second thought, she commanded her guards, "Seize this fool! He has defied the royal decree. In 2 days, as punishment, molten iron shall be poured into his wretched eyes." The old fisherman trembled with fear, his knees nearly giving out beneath him. With folded hands, he pleaded, "Oh, great princess, have mercy on this poor man. Consider my old age and grant me your forgiveness." But his desperate words meant nothing to Princess Bano. She scoffed, "Spare him no mercy, he shall face his punishment." With that, she turned away, her golden carriage rolling forward as the grand procession continued. The old fisherman fell to his knees, his body shaking with terror. Tears streamed down his face as he tried to gather his scattered fish. A guard sneered, "What do you think you're doing, old man? You've already made a mess of the street. You have no time for this." Just then a young man stepped forward. Without a word, he bent down and helped the old fisherman pick up his fish, placing them back into the basket. The guard scowled. "Get out of here, boy, this is none of your concern." The young man didn't argue. He cast a long look in the direction of the princess's retreating procession. Deep in his heart, a decision had been made. She needed to be taught a lesson. Determined to break Bano's hollow pride, the young man made his way to the palace, searching for a way in. But as he approached, he saw that the place was heavily guarded. Every corner was lined with watchful sentries, their sharp eyes scanning for any sign of an intruder. He studied the fortress-like defenses, realizing that getting inside wouldn't be easy. For now, he stepped back, deciding to wait for the perfect opportunity. Bano's security was no joke. Even when she slept, her personal guard stood around her bed, watching over her. No one was allowed near her chambers without permission. Then, one night, for reasons unknown even to herself, Bano dismissed her personal guards and decided to sleep alone. This was the chance the young man had been waiting for. Slipping past the palace guards in the dead of night, he silently entered her chamber. There she was, sleeping peacefully, unaware of his presence. The room was filled with the finest treasures, each more dazzling than the last. Then his eyes landed on something extraordinary, a red gemstone, glowing so brightly that it lit up the entire room. Without hesitation, he picked up the jewel and vanished into the night, the same way he had come. Moments later, Bano woke up. Darkness filled the room. Her heart raced. Something was terribly wrong. Startled, Banu sprang from her bed, her hands fumbling in the darkness until she found the chain connected to the alarm bell. She yanked it hard. The loud ringing echoed through the palace. Within moments, her attendants rushed into the room. In the royal chambers, the Sultan and his wife jolted awake at the sound. The queen clutched her chest. "What happened to my daughter? We must go to her at once." When they arrived at Banu's room, her servants stood anxiously by her side. "Your Majesty, no one has left the palace," one of them assured. The Sultan turned to his daughter. "Tell me what happened." "Father, someone has stolen the red jewel from my chamber," Banu cried. Without hesitation, the Sultan commanded his guards, "Search the entire palace. The thief must still be here." But the young man was long gone. At sunrise, a royal decree was announced across the kingdom. Whoever returned the stolen red jewel would receive a reward of their choosing. Upon hearing this, the young man smirked. The next phase of his plan was about to begin. According to his plan, he presented himself before the Sultan, bowing deeply with utmost respect. The Sultan studied him and asked, "Who are you?" With unwavering composure, the young man replied, "Your Majesty, I have returned the stolen red diamond. Now, as per your promise, I request you to fulfill my one demand." The Sultan's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he examined the gem. "Speak. What is it that you desire?" The young man took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, I ask that the punishment of the old fisherman who was sentenced to blindness merely for seeing the princess be revoked, and I demand that the guards who arrested him and insulted me be whipped for their cruelty." The Sultan's expression shifted to one of surprise. "What is your relation to this old fisherman?" The young man stood firm. "Your Majesty, I share no relation with him except for humanity. I simply could not bear to see him suffer. Besides, what harm did a mere glance truly cause to the princess?" Hearing these words, the Sultan's face darkened with anger. He turned to his vizier and ordered, "Throw this insolent fool into the dungeon, and as promised, release the old fisherman and have those guards whipped, 50 lashes each." The young man, unfazed, looked at the Sultan and asked, "Your Majesty, why are you imprisoning me?" The Sultan's voice was sharp. "Not only did you steal the princess's red diamond, but you also dared to insult her." With unwavering respect, the young man responded, "Your Majesty, I took the gem only to save the old fisherman from punishment. You are making a mistake. If you do this, I will escape from your prison and steal your crown." The Sultan scoffed. "Foolish boy, you won't even get near my crown." With a wave of his hand, the Sultan signaled his guards. The soldiers seized the young man and dragged him away to the dungeon, locking him behind heavy iron bars. Sitting in his cell, the young man smirked. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had planned. He was now fully prepared for his next move. Banu's fury burned as the Sultan handed her the stolen ruby and recounted the entire tale. "How dare that insolent man steal from my chamber and now plot to take your crown, Abbajan?" she seethed. "He must be made an example. Have him dragged to the town square and his hands severed so no one dares such defiance again." The Sultan nodded. "Do not worry, my child. It shall be done as you wish." A royal decree spread across the kingdom. By dawn, every citizen must gather at the town square where the audacious thief who dared enter Banu's palace would face the ultimate punishment, both hands cut off. That night, as the royal vizier relayed the Sultan's command to the imprisoned young man, he erupted in laughter. "You fools! By sunrise I won't be here. In fact, I'll be long gone, with the Sultan's crown." Alarmed, the vizier turned to the jail warden. "Double the guards around the prison tonight. He must not escape." At dawn, the Sultan eagerly turned to his vizier. "Go, bring that wretch at once. I am impatient to witness his hands being severed myself." "Yes, your Majesty," the vizier responded, hurrying toward the prison. Upon arrival, he ordered the jail warden, "Bring the young man at once." But when the warden entered the cell, all he found were empty shackles. His heart pounded in terror as the ground beneath him seemed to vanish. Rushing back to the vizier, he stammered, "Huzur, there's nothing left but the shackles. He's escaped." The vizier's face darkened. "The Sultan will not spare you now." Shaken, the warden protested, "I swear, I checked on him throughout the night. I don't know how he managed this." The vizier snapped, "I don't care. Come with me to the Sultan." When the vizier relayed the shocking news, the Sultan's face turned pale as if life had drained from his body. In a frenzy, he sprinted to his chamber, only to find his crown missing. A chill ran through his veins. He was utterly shaken. Banu entered the palace and saw the Sultan sitting in despair. When she asked the reason for his sorrow, the Sultan replied, "What is the use of being a ruler if a mere thief can sneak into my palace and take whatever he pleases?" Banu scoffed, "I think all the servants are conspiring with that wretch. But don't be disheartened, father. There is a way to catch him and reclaim your crown. Capture that old traveler again and announce to the entire kingdom that his eyes will be gouged out and he will be imprisoned in the princess's palace. That scoundrel will come to rescue him for sure." As soon as the Sultan issued the order, the soldiers seized the old traveler. However, instead of harming him, the Sultan ensured he was comfortably placed in a royal chamber. Meanwhile, a royal decree was spread across the land, declaring the old man's imprisonment and the cruel fate awaiting him. Upon hearing this, the young man's blood boiled with rage. He clenched his fists and muttered, "Since they couldn't capture me, they took the old traveler instead. Enough is enough. It's time to end this once and for all." That night, the princess's palace was heavily guarded. Elite soldiers stood watch at every corner, armed to the teeth. Even the Sultan himself, disguised in ordinary attire, patrolled the grounds. But suddenly a blood-curdling scream echoed from the princess's chamber. The Sultan rushed in, his heart pounding. There on the floor lay Princess Banu, her body deathly blue. Panic spread as the royal physician was summoned. After a tense examination, he turned pale and, with a trembling voice, declared, "Forgive me, your Majesty, but the princess is no more. She was bitten by a venomous snake." A wave of unbearable grief crashed over the Sultan. He wailed, "No! My child, you cannot leave me. Without you, I have no reason to live." The entire palace was drowned in mourning. Just then, the vizier's eyes fell on a chair in the room where the sultan's missing crown was placed. He turned to the sultan and said, "Forgive me, your majesty, but this is no coincidence. That thief has struck again. He left behind your crown and took the princess's life." Princess Banu's death left the sultan in unbearable grief, and he wept the entire night. By morning, following royal customs, Princess Banu was laid to rest. The entire city mourned her passing. An eerie silence filled the streets. Shops remained closed, and people prayed for her soul. The next day, when the sultan visited her grave to offer flowers, he was struck with horror. The grave was dug open and Banu's body was missing. The shock was too much for him. He collapsed to the ground. The vizier rushed to his aid, splashing cold water on his face to revive him. But even as he regained consciousness, the sultan seemed lost, staring at everyone as if they were strangers. After 4 days of treatment, he finally came to his senses. The grief of losing Banu was immense, but the disappearance of her body tormented him even more. Determined to uncover the truth, he summoned the finest spies from across the neighboring kingdoms, ordering them to search every corner of the city for his daughter's remains. But what the sultan didn't know was that the one who had taken Banu's body had already left the kingdom far behind. The grave robber was none other than the young man who had vowed to shatter Banu's pride. Riding swiftly through the night, the young man carried Banu's lifeless body on his horse, racing past the borders of Baghdad. When he reached the outskirts of the city, he hid her body in the bushes and went to fetch a wooden chest. Carefully placing Banu inside, he rented a room at a local inn. As night fell and the city slept, he opened the chest, whispered an incantation, and transformed into a serpent. Slithering onto Banu's lifeless form, he sucked the venom from her wound before returning to his human form. Moments later, Banu stirred, gasping for breath. She weakly asked for water. The young man helped her drink, watching as awareness returned to her face. "Where am I? Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I just had the most terrifying dream. A snake bit me. I died. I was buried. And then you dug me out and carried me away on a white horse." She paused, realization dawning in her wide eyes. "But that wasn't a dream, was it?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why did you bring me here? What do you want from me? And with so many guards, how did you sneak into the palace and steal?" The startled Bano bombarded him with questions. The young man replied, "Listen, Bano, if you truly wish to know, my name is bin Mustafa. My father was a great magician who taught me the art of transforming into a snake. I used to enter your palace in the form of a snake. The snake that bit you and led to your death was none other than me. I knew that if the venom of a snake bite is sucked out within 3 days, the person can be revived. I did all of this to teach you a lesson and to shatter your hollow pride. And now, you will forever remain with me as my servant. This is your punishment." Bano was stunned into silence. She couldn't find words to respond. After a long pause, she pleaded for forgiveness, saying, "Blinded by arrogance, I have wronged so many people. Please forgive me." But the young man was unmoved by Bano's remorse. After bringing her home, he kept Bano not as a princess but as a servant. For days, Bano begged him to take her back to her father, but he didn't trust her. He believed she was only saying this out of desperation to escape. As time passed, Bano gradually shed her arrogance. She started caring for the household like a wife, tending to even the smallest needs of the young man. Slowly, his harshness toward her faded, and he found himself drawn to her. But then he thought, he was merely the son of a humble magician and she was a princess. One day, to test her, he left the house, giving her a full opportunity to escape. He decided that if she was still there when he returned, he would confess his feelings to her. The day passed with difficulty as he anxiously waited. That night, when he returned, his heart pounded with nervousness. But to his surprise, Bano was still there, absorbed in her usual tasks. After deep contemplation, he decided there was no future for them. The gap between their status was too vast. So, the next morning, he took Bano back to the Sultan's palace. The moment the Sultan saw his daughter alive, tears of joy streamed down his face. He embraced Bano and overwhelmed her with questions. The young man humbly apologized and narrated the entire story. Upon hearing everything, the Sultan ordered his minister, "Take him to the gallows immediately." But Bano intervened, saying, "No, father, he did all this to destroy my arrogance. Now I have accepted him as my husband in my heart. If anything happens to him, I will give up my life too." Unable to refuse his daughter's plea, the king agreed and arranged their marriage. The old laws no longer mattered, the kingdom rejoiced, and Bano and the young man lived happily together.